We talk a lot about homelessness and in particular shelters on this show. Today, those were big topics in the state capitol too. Here's a live look in Salem where lawmakers heard from service providers and emergency managers about concerns they have when it comes to running severe weather shelters. The hearing was timely considering the winter weather we experienced here in the metro late last week. Several counties declaring winter emergencies and opening shelters for those trying to escape the cold. In Multnomah County, throughout last week's storm, a total of 8 warming shelters opened from Gresham to Portland. On Monday, 285 people stayed in county-run shelters. 356 people on Tuesday, 489 people on Wednesday, and more than 700 people Thursday night. We don't have exact numbers for Friday, and the shelters closed on Saturday. The numbers you see here do not include the dozens of people who stayed at 2 Salvation Army shelters or year-round shelter beds. So clearly there's a need. And those numbers are just for Multnomah County. Today in Salem, service providers, first responders, those who run these types of shelters, got the chance to talk to lawmakers to share some of their concerns around how things are going and how the state could help. This was an informational session, part of the Senate Committee on Housing and Development.
What do you wish either electeds or decision makers understood about what it's like for you on the ground as a provider to help us come up with policies that will help us better serve the most vulnerable Oregonians who are seeking shelter at this time?
If you can imagine trying to get a team of staff, trying to get cots, food, other resources, and community partners together in a large building in 6 hours is complete chaos, to the point where by the time that we're opening for residents or participants to come in, staff are checked out emotionally and physically. They're exhausted, they're tired.
What I would love to see a little bit more of is communication with the neighbors as part of the neighborhood where that shelter exists. A lot of that also falls on providers to have to kind of ask or answer questions that come up. People come up to doors, they want to know what's going on. We're just trying to do the work. We're just trying to make sure that people are safe and warm in the shelter. So it kind of becomes a PR nightmare, I'll be honest.
And I get it. I've done many stories about those nightmares where the community is upset over temporary shelters moving into their neighborhoods, seemingly without notice. And speaking of notice and communication, Multnomah County holds an 8 a.m. emergency briefing every day during severe weather events. These service providers want to see information from those briefings shared publicly.
I don't see that pushed out into community overall. So I think there are some learnings from this year for that.
Service providers from rural Oregon were also there, and their concerns were, as you can imagine, different from city groups. Their biggest challenge, transportation. For example, the Community Action Program of East Central Oregon covers more than 8,000 square miles, so it can be hard for them to reach people.
So how do we get people to the shelters is a huge barrier for us. We are aware of folks that are living in situations that are unsafe, that could potentially become dangerous due to the weather, but we're not able to access them or get to them or bring them in due to how rural they are. We're really struggling in that boat.
They also don't have enough shelters, and in the ones that they do have, if people eventually get there, the services offered are limited.
We just don't have the staff and the trained staff to be able to meet those needs in such a short notice in an emergency situation. All 4 of the shelters that I mentioned are in Umatilla County alone, and we haven't been able to coordinate with any other folks in any other one of our counties to do some type of emergency response.
Again, today's hearing was informational to help lawmakers better understand the boots on the ground, so to speak. And we'll see if it helps spur any legislation regarding weather shelters in the weeks and months to come.